Using theatrical lighting instruments without a proper dimmer setup, as long as the power formula is consulted to consider the wattage of the lamp in relation to the remaining power safely available from the breaker, then you should have no problem at all. Just be aware that theatrical lighting instruments can pull from 100 watts to 1000 watts commonly, but even up to 2000 watts. Controlling an incandescent instrument with a light board is incredibly simple because of the limited properties of the instrument that you are able to control. And while it is true that you are able to attach a variety of accessories like gobo wheels, color scrollers, an IQ spotlight, or other additions to the functionality, in general, theatrical incandescents only have one property to control: the intensity or brightness of the instrument. Like mentioned before, some boards use sliders to turn instruments on, and others a keyboard to select the channel first. But the options are on, off, or somewhere in between, usually at a percentage, but always with intention. However, the other side to this is that before we can start controlling an incandescent instrument from a light board or console, we have to connect them together. So while the functionality is narrowed to the intensity of each instrument, when we think about a light board controlling an incandescent, things get a little more complicated. Plugging an instrument into a power outlet directly automatically turns it on to 100% brightness, which is a on instrument's natural state. However, it's usually desirable in theater to have instruments on at a variety of different levels at different times, as well as the ability to transition smoothly between those intensities. To do this, our setup requires a middle component to handle the heavy workload. In theater, we use what is referred to as a dimmer or dimmer pack. Similar to a dimmer switch in a home, which is able to help redirect unneeded power, a theatrical dimmer is simply a self-contained electromagnet that is able to distribute a specific amount of power to each lighting instrument, and does this through a DMX signal from the lighting board or control console, usually with a 5-pin DMX cable. In traditional theater setups, dimmer packs usually come in groupings of 24, 48, 96, etc. But you can also get them in smaller, more affordable 4 to 6 packs. To control the pack and its instruments respectively, you must first set the DMX address on the dimmer pack. In this case, address 1, making each plug a consecutive address to be controlled. So, on a 4-pack of dimmers, this would claim addresses 1 through 4. These addresses can be then patched into a board to specific channels, giving you the ability to group instruments together as washes or specials, regardless of the address or dimmer the instrument is plugged into. If you are lucky enough to be in a traditional theater setup, you might be lucky enough to have circuit plug-in spots near the pipes. But if you install your own smaller 4 to 6 dimmer packs, hang them near the instruments to quickly connect those instruments directly. And don't forget, dimmer packs need safety cables as well. To get the board to control the dimmer packs and be able to turn each instrument on individually, you will need to run a 5-pin DMX cable from the dimmer pack to the board. More than one dimmer pack? They can be daisy-chained together to get the DMX signal from the board to each instrument. If you have a larger installed dimmer pack setup or a dimmer rack, you still need to run a 5-pin DMX cable from the dimmer rack to the board. But this could already have been done for you when the system was installed. No matter the setup of your space, the goal is to connect the board to the dimmers through DMX cabling for the board to be able to control those individual instruments. The more you plan in advance, the less adapting you have to do when setting things up. Inexpensive LED instruments can be a great way to get vibrant color and broad washes of light when budgets are low and can function with or without a lighting board. A quick search online reveals that these come in an ever-expanding list of different types, sizes, capabilities, manufacturers, and most importantly, costs. So the best idea is to test anything before you buy. The first LED I want to discuss is the LED par or slim par. These instruments, as mentioned in previous videos, usually come with RGB color mixing as a foundation, and then additional colors in more expensive models. Regardless of the instrument, the LED will have some form of back panel or menu to set the DMX address for a light board to recognize, or to set it to a standalone mode, whether it be a color, a simple repeating fade, or some other intensity or color effect. The instrument's manual will detail the number of parameters you are able to control and how to do so in the internal menu. In addition, many of these instruments come with elaborate remote controls that are able to do any of the above on the fly. The more detailed the remote, the more options available for effects and timings available. LED tape is another inexpensive LED item that can also be controlled either with a light board or Gorilla style with a remote control, offering similar options to LED PARs for colors, brightness settings, and effects, but in this case is created on a strip of tape in a line. All the tape's LEDs function the same way and at the same brightnesses, which makes LED tape a great way for hiding the light source in creative places. LED tape can be often linked together to get longer lengths of light, although definitely make sure to read the instructions as brightness can weaken the longer the chain. For smaller storefront style theaters, LED tape makes a great replacement source for a backdrop or cyc, especially if you have a few strands on both the top and the bottom, creating a dynamic blend in the middle. LED tape can also be used as a compact uplight to help fill in the gaps when strip lights aren't possible. Bluetooth-controlled LED lighting is getting more popular as smart home options become more widely available for a more affordable cost. This cool technology can also be utilized on stage and controlled with your phone or other Bluetooth operating device offstage. And while this technology can be incredibly flexible and affordable, you should note that like all Bluetooth technology, there is a chance it might be glitchy depending on your signal, setup, etc. And those details just want to be taken into consideration. As usual, I strongly encourage you to do your research, look at product reviews and online forums, test things out, and make educated decisions to find what works best for you, your space, and your budget. When thinking about using LEDs with a light board, there are a few different things to consider, but oddly, the setup is far simpler than getting an incandescent to function, mostly because low-power LEDs have a self-contained dimmer. And this is one of the many things that make LEDs so great, not needing a separate dimmer pack or dimmer rack to control them. Most LEDs will have the ability to set the DMX address and functionality in the digital or LCD display on the rear of the instrument, or use it to set up a standalone mode as well. The DMX address is the number that you program into the instrument, corresponding with the address assigned, or patched to a specific channel of control in the light board. For instance, some simple RGB LEDs only have 3 parameters of control, one turning on each series of red, blue, and green diodes. Some have a 4th parameter of control that allows you to use the first 3 to set the specific color, and the 4th to fade the overall intensity. More complex instruments like moving lights add channels of control for things like pan, the left and right movement, tilt, the up and down movement, fine detail pan, fine detail tilt, a strobe capability, color controls, gobo controls, zoom or focus options, shutters, and more. Each parameter takes an address that is then controlled by one channel in your board, so make sure to consider that if you have a limited number of channels available in your board. And read the manual carefully when choosing your options to make sure you are able to support the instruments you are purchasing. Another tip for situations where only a few channels are available, but you have multiple LEDs, would be to set them all to the same DMX address. That way, when you turn one on, they all turn on at once. More advanced boards, on the other hand, will actually have a library of possible instruments to choose from, then conglomerating all the variables of control into just one channel of control. So while it will still use up all the addresses you have set it to use, starting with the program DMX address and then simply claiming the remaining addresses chronologically, there is also way more information about patching both incandescents and dynamic instruments in the tutorials or manuals of the specific board you are using.